This is what everyone knows Newcastle for, football. But I'm going to tell you about something much, much better.
They want to know about Islam, we'll give them da'wah. They want to know what a Muslim does, we'll give them da'wah. When they want to hate on...
In 2012, I was a non-Muslim who walked into my local masjid. I met the brothers there from IDC. This was a team of brothers who told me about the message of Islam in detail. I took my shahada. The brothers, they didn't just leave me there. You know, they supported me, provided me new Muslim classes, and after all these years, I became the head of the new Muslim department here at IDC, teaching other new Muslims, supporting them and mentoring them, just like I was supported. IDC is not just your typical charity. We have our Islamic awareness stalls engaging with non-Muslims in our local city centre, and answering all their questions about Islam, public events and exhibitions for non-Muslims to come learn about Islam, masjid visits for the local community, school visits teaching non-Muslim kids and staff about Islam. We visit the elderly and spend time with them regularly to give them companionship, feeding the homeless every single week, giving them hot meals and advice. We make the children smile every single year by visiting them in the hospitals and giving them gifts. So many people have taken their shahada with us.
Ashhadu an
La
ilaha
ilaha
illallah.
Because of this, we then provide new Muslim classes for them and support them on their journey. Please, please, please give whatever you can. Do you know how much you can afford? Better than myself. Some of us can give £10, some of us can give £500, and every single person that accepts Islam, you will get a portion of that reward. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he said that charity does not decrease our wealth. So brothers and sisters, believe in those words and give for the sake of Allah. And Allah, inshallah, will increase it for you. Click the button and donate now.
They want to know about Islam, we'll give them da'wah. They want to know what a Muslim does, we'll give them da'wah. When they want to hate on our deen, we'll give them da'wah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're watching Newcastle Fast FM. This is the Late Show Live with your host Abu Tayeb, and as always, every night we're here to talk about different topics, different subjects throughout the month of Ramadan from midnight onwards. And we have our co-host with us, Brother Joni. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, Johnny, bro?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah. It's the last 10 nights, brother. So
Yeah,
it's 21st night.
That's why we got a very. That's why we got a very special guest with us.
Yes, we do indeed. Yes, we do.
My Indian brother.
Now he's your Indian brother, Johnny, yeah?
My Indian brother.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Well, just to before we start introducing our guest, let's just remind the viewers that this is the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Subhanallah, it's gone quite quickly actually. We have to make the most of these nights while we have the opportunity. So make sure that you spend your nights in ibadah, in salah, in Quran, in dhikr of Allah, making plenty of dua. And this is your last opportunity, really, these last 10 nights to find Laylatul Qadr and also to maximize your rewards in this blessed month. So that's a quick reminder that we should, encourage each other to do good while we have the opportunity, while the rewards are multiplied. So one of the things that we're going to do every night is going to give you an opportunity on the late show, for those of you who are watching, to give some charity, give some zakah, give some sadaqah, get some rewards during these last 10 nights so that you can get your rewards multiplied. And what we're asking every night for the last 10 nights from all of our viewers is to become an IDC supporter. So support IDC by becoming an IDC supporter. So IDC can support the da'wah. All right. So you will see the link there, idcsupport.com. Click on it and set up a direct debit, a regular donation. £10 a month is what we're asking for, so that we can continue this work all year round and you can get the rewards of the work that we're doing, alhamdulillah, for the sake of Allah. So it's a good opportunity, guys. Donate in this month, and then with charity, and that charity, inshallah, will remove any fitna or hardships that will come your way, inshallah. So let me introduce our guest for this evening, Brother Ayaz. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, bro?
Alhamdulillah, very good. It's a real pleasure having you on the show, brother. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you for having me.
It's a shame Salahuddin couldn't be with us tonight, but unfortunately he's not feeling too well. So may Allah make it easy for him and cure him. But you know, the reason why I'm really excited to have you on the show is because I've heard a lot of good things about you, my brother, and I've heard a lot of the works that you've been doing, and I'm really keen to find out more. All right, so let's start a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Ayaz, you're from India. You are a Muslim living in India, born and brought up, I'm assuming. Tell us a little bit about your background, brother.
Basically, as my name is Ayaz Asad, possibly on Facebook, some people might see Joni Ayaz, so it's quite confusing. And some people thought that is a fake ID. So there is a story behind why I am called George. I'll come to that later, inshallah. So I was born in the eastern part of Bihar, quite near to Joni's place, near to Bangladesh, very near part of India. Alhamdulillah, I was raised there. Basic education I got from there, and then I moved to Delhi, where actually I started giving dawah. Basically, that place, Delhi, really touched my heart, and it's very close to my heart because that's the city which really gave me Islam. Before that, yes, I was born in a Muslim family, but I was just there as a Muslim for namesake. And by the way, George, my full name was George Winton. It's quite surprising for many people because I was born in a Muslim family but given an English name. But that English name has impact on me. That really changed me of a person. Like, I was Muslim, I used to make fun of people who used to pray, including my mom. Whenever I saw her praying, I said, why on earth are you praying? There's no God, nothing like that. You just guys have made up. So religion is a main mad thing. So this was my nature. I was completely an agnostic, rejecting everything. And by the way, till that time, I never got hold of Quran. Yes, I was taught Quran as an Arabic, as Indian tradition, Indian, Pakistan, Bangladesh. In this Indian subcontinent, it's quite popular that you have to read Quran. And that is, you just read in Arabic. You don't understand the message and nothing. So I read that, but when I was reading Quran, since my English name had an impact on me, so that time, subhanAllah, I made fun, even I used abusive word for my Quran teacher. Alhamdulillah, when I started practicing, I got chance to meet that teacher and apologize for my mistakes which I made. But hang on a second, English name, born in a Muslim family, become complete agnostic. Then comes a day, we were in a tea shop with my classmate and we saw a poster of a debate. It was on a certain topic between a Muslim and non-Muslim in New Delhi. And I was in the University of Jamia Millia Islamia. Now what happens? My friend says, bro, let's go there. It's Sunday, we are free. I said, man, what are we gonna go do there? Like, these guys, these Muslims, yeah, they just say anything. I said, no, let's go. We just casually say, okay, we are Sunday. I said, we haven't been anywhere since a couple of weeks, so it's a good, good time. We go there, attend the program. So that particular venue of the program was near a garden, or near a park rather. So it was a big park. It's quite famous in Delhi. So I said, after the program, we'll go and hang out. I said, okay, that's a good idea. Let's go. When I went there, when I heard the Muslim speaker talking about Islam, defending Islam actually was something, I don't really remember the topic exactly, but it was defending about Islam. So I heard that guy quoting Quran, passages and verses from the Quran, the stories from the Quran with references. And I realized, hang on a second, I tend to reject this book called Quran, but I never read this Quran at all. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm a stupid guy. I'm rejecting something which I haven't read completely. So I came back to my flat where I was living with my friends. And surprisingly, it's a clear sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I found a Hindi translation of the Quran in my room. Out of nowhere, I don't know how that particular copy of Quran came to my room, who put this there, but it was there. Now, to my surprise, hang on a second. Now I got the translated version of Quran, which I never read in my entire life, despite being in a Muslim family. Now, I said, let's go, let's start. And surprisingly, I also recorded the audio version of that particular program. So I had the references, so I jotted down on paper and tried to cross-check whether he was lying, because I liked the arguments he was making. I liked the verses he was quoting. It was touching my heart. And I said, hang on a second, was he just just quoting reference from the Quran and he's saying his word possibly to win the hearts? That was my mind, because I was a critical guy, Then I said, no, hang on a second, note down the verses. And subhanAllah, when I cross-checked, it was exactly the same. Now, no lies, I said, hang on a second. Even before I started reading the Quran, after cross-checking the verses, I reading those verses with the speaker quoted in that particular program, I said, why on earth I was rejecting this book? I was a clear, stupid, crazy guy. Then I started reading Quran after I finished Surah Al-Baqarah, and I contacted the speaker somehow on Facebook, and I said, bro, I'm really interested in Islam. And he somehow linked me to a local Dawah organization in Delhi. This is where my journey began. Alhamdulillah, it's continuing. And Allah, I make dua to Allah that may Allah allow us to continue till our last breath.
Ameen. That's amazing. I mean, that's really interesting, because for me, there's so many things which just stand out from this one little bit that you mentioned. You've got a name called George Winton, right? I don't think you can get any more English than that, right? And more English name than that. You're brought up in a Muslim family that isn't practicing, apart from your mum who prays, right? You become an agnostic. Did you go to a Christian school, or did you go to a normal state school? What type of school?
It was just a normal private convent school. So it's a secular school, not Christian, but owned by Muslims. But initially, I went to schools which were run by Hindu. Then I went to a boarding school, which I was very young. Actually, the problem was that we were not. This is not my problem. It's problem of entire continent. And Joni would agree with this, because he has spent a lot of times in Bangladesh. That we are not really taught Islam as it is. You're just given as a culture. My grandfather, my mom's dad, who gave me the name, actually, he studied in Dhaka University. He was fan of English language.
Right. Okay. Joni, I'm sure you can relate. Share some of your stories and background, bro. When you were being brought up in Bangladesh, did you have a similar experience to Ayaz? Did you get taught Islam? What was your upbringing like? Tell us a little bit about that.
Bismillah.
How you were brought up.
Bismillah. Bro, I will tell you something that will make you crazy. Ayaz, subhanAllah, we both have very much similarities. Like, my name is English name, and you can probably guess why my name is a English name, because one of my uncle, he chose this name, and for some reason, obviously, he used to like English people and English name, whatever it is. And then actually, what happened, bro, when I was growing up, like Ayaz says, like in our country, we don't learn Islam just because Islam is something amazing. It's but because it's the cultural things, and to the point, bro, not only my name was English, I used to wear cross. I never told anyone to you guys before this one. I used to wear cross just to make it like it's cool. It looks really nice because I seen Shah Rukh Khan, one of the movie, he's wearing the cross. Ayaz knows this, huh? So what happened, bro? Let me tell you something. When I seen that movie, and I said I must collect that whatever it is, the cross. I went to my capital, Dhaka, and I found that, and I got it, and I was wearing all the time because my mom is practicing, so she actually wouldn't allow me to do that. I would always keep in my drawer. When I go to school, I put in a bag. As soon as I'm out of home, I will wear that and brace everything. So that is my upbringing, bro. My mom, in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, even people don't pray. They become religious in the month of Ramadan. At least they pray, they start fasting, and they go to Friday Juma prayer. But for me, I would never go. I wouldn't go Friday Juma prayer. I wouldn't fast in Ramadan. And my mom obviously would get upset. I would tell her, look, I don't even pray 5 times a day. I don't fast. What's the point for me to go to Friday and Juma? God is not waiting for me. Literally, word by word, I say, God is not waiting for me in the masjid, in that small hut. I would tell that, and my mom was got fed up. And what I used to do, because the Juma time around 12 to half 12 in Bangladesh, so I would specifically get out of the home in that time so that my mom doesn't get a hold of me and send it to mosque. And I would come 2 o'clock when the Juma is finished. So it is very coincidental. Like Ayaz told me that how he became Muslim. Basically, he saw someone quoting all the stuff. Actually, I found someone as the same thing was quoting, and we all know who is he. So that time, right before I come to UK, I saw some guys quoting from Quran, and it's amazing. I didn't think much because I was like, okay, that's fine, that sounds good, but I didn't think. But when I came in this country, obviously, Alhamdulillah, then I found Islam. But what I want to tell you, bro, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, this subhanallah is very, there's so many souls are being cracked. There's so many people, the youth, they don't know about Islam because, bro, our older generation, they had no idea of understanding of Islam. They would read the Quran, they would do the khatam of the Quran in the month of Ramadan, not knowing one word, what is Allah is saying. Like,
You know,
for
that's
example,
deep, because similar to what Ayaz was saying and what you're saying as well, it seems that the cultural Islam, if you like, or the cultural upbringing that you got is actually very far from Islam and more in line with maybe European values, or trying to be European, or trying to be something that you're not, essentially, right?
absolutely.
And the interesting thing for me there is that it took you to read the Quran yourselves for you to, in a language you understood, and this is the important point here, in a language you understood, for you to be able to reconnect with your deen.
Yes,
right?
bro, and I also tell you because what happened, bro, when in the month of Ramadan in Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, till today I will tell this. They read the Quran and they actually ask you, brother, which para are you? How far are you? Did you do khatam yet? But subhanallah, Allah says in the Quran, Surah Baqarah, like, kaifa takfuruna billah. This is, we read it so a melodious voice, but we don't understand what is Allah is saying. Allah is saying, where are you going? Allah is asking, like, when Allah is asking, where are you going? That means Allah wants me to think, basically. But we don't do that. We don't think. That's why, bro, subhanallah, we have a fitra. When you listen to the Quran, it will trigger in your heart. You will, today or tomorrow, you will understand. But we've been reading the Arabic like a Chinese language. If you speak to me in Chinese, bro, I wouldn't have no clue. If there is a snake behind me, and Abu Tayyib say, brother, in Arabic, there is a snake behind you, I'll maybe say Alhamdulillah, maybe because it's Arabic, I don't know anything. But if I understand, I'll jump.
Forget Arabic,
Yeah.
I share something I just reminded me, subhanAllah, about the Jummah and the Arabic. When I was in a boarding school, we were given off from a school after the class that you can go, because in boarding school, what happens is you are not allowed to leave the campus, right? So you're bound to be there no matter what, unless your parents or guardians come and they take you out. On the day of Jummah, we were allowed to go out to pray. But what happened with me, I not only didn't pray Jummah, I also convinced other person. So I'm giving a dawah to that person to go away from Islam. I convinced someone else, a best friend of mine, to go with me outside of the campus and not go to masjid for Jummah, as just hang out in the market.
Subhanallah.
This was a situation of mine. I didn't practice.
Look, we're going to talk a little bit about the history. We did a session on the history of Islam on the first week of Ramadan, in particular the Ahl Hadith movement in India, right? So let's talk a little bit about the history of Islam in India from your perspective, Brother Ayaz, right? Because you've obviously done some research on this. But my question is, once we've talked about the history, knowing the great, rich history, Islamic history that there is in India, how did we get to where we are now in terms of where it just becomes Muslim by name and not without any understanding, and it's become like parrot fashion Islam almost, right? Just a label. So let's talk a little bit about the history first, just so we can put things in context of our rich history, and then we can answer this question, inshallah. So tell us a little bit about the history of Islam, because we know that, everyone talks about Muhammad bin Qasim. He came and he liberated Sindh, first of all, and then he spread his dawah to Islam. But we know that Islam came before Muhammad bin Qasim, don't we?
Yeah. Yes, definitely, you're right. Actually, it's a popular history about Muhammad bin Qasim, and because he came, he was sent. He came with the army of Hajjaj bin Yusuf, and when some historians claim that men, women, and children from that particular region who were crossing Sindh were attacked, so he was sent by the Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, to protect and to fight actually. But it's a surprising fact that lots of people do not know, or lots of people know, that Islam came to India when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was alive. Now,
Subhanallah.
so it's not about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam demise. He left us, he left the Sunnah, he died, and then Islam came. No, Islam came during his lifetime. It's quite amazing, right? Muhammad bin Qasim, is I'll talk about that later. So what happens, if you look at India, right? So you have to understand the cultural aspects and the current current situation of that time, what people believed or what people used to worship or things like that. So in Malabar is a region in southern India. It's no more Malabar. Is some parts of Kerala. You could say it's the northwest part of southwest part of India. So it's connected to sea. So it's a sea route. So internationally, you see people all across the world. If they have to cross, they have to cross that particular region, right? Because you don't have, like, even though if you take long flights, you have to take a layover somewhere, right? Just to reach your final destination. Similar was layover, you could say, in modern terminology, you could say layover kind of things was near the Kochi and different parts of southern India. So Arab traders were frequently coming there. And as we know, India was well known for trade, like spices. India exported spices to Europe and Arab world. So even though if you go to Arab world, there are lots of similarities in food, right? If you compare the food culture of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and you compare it to the Arab nation, there's lots of similarities. Not exactly the same, but similarities. So spices were exported from India. Now, apart from trade, Islam also came through Yemeni traders in the northwest coast of India. But the history I'm talking about in particular is a king called Raja Perumal Cheraman. Perumal Cheraman, who was a king in Malabar. Now, Dr. Tarachand was one of the greatest historians of India. I think there's a book, I think he published, I forgot this name of the book. Let me quote the name. He wrote a book, Influence of India on Indian culture. It was published in 1936. Very old book. He makes very popular, amazing claim. He says, before the 9th century in South India, conflicts of religions with Buddhism and Jainism grew. New Hinduism was struggling. It was a period of unsettlement and upheaval. So they had a culture, popular culture, and people were confused. So new Hinduism culture at that time was confusing, for people struggling. But this guy called Raja Cheraman, some people claim, there are some traditions, so I'll quote all the versions or different versions. Some people say that that particular king saw splitting of moon. We know in the Islamic tradition, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ splitted the moon, right? So he saw that particular miracle from his own eyes. And some other claims that he saw in his dreams. So whatever the case, and thirdly, the third version of it, that he received a letter when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was writing letter to famous kings of the world to accept Islam, to embrace Islam. So there are three versions. Whatever version we take, we know for the fact that he traveled to Mecca to meet Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And he went there and he died. Some people say he went there, he was coming back when he died, and whatever. Then he sent from there a person called Malik Dinar. He was student of Hassan Basri. He was Tabein. He was from Basra originally. So he came, and other people as well. There are lots of people, not just alone, there were lots of people, along with the main guy, the key guy who was sent, the Tabein, was Malik Dinar. Some people misunderstood him by Malik ibn Dinar, who was a Sahabi. So no, he was Malik Dinar, is another guy who was a Tabein, who came to the state of modern day Kerala, and he came to the people because there was a letter given by that king, the Perumal Cheraman, who died, that I have embraced Islam and please allow these guys to preach Islam. He didn't just accept Islam when he died. At the same time, he sent some people to preach Islam because he knew the beauty of Islam, right? When he came, the Tarach and the historian I talked about, he mentions about 11 different places where the structure of masjid was erected. But for the time being, at the moment, at least we know one masjid which was named after the king, Chairman Juma Masjid. It was established in 629 CE.
Wow.
3 years before the demise of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
That's amazing.
Not
That is
after.
unbelievable.
Yeah?
Wow.
3 years before. So look how early Islam came. And that masjid, subhanallah, I got chance. I could cry, you know. I literally got chance to pray in that masjid last year in 2019 when I was traveling. And I'll give you, so people, if you're watching from India, there's a city called Kochi. It's quite famous city in South India. It's also known as Ernakulam. It's 1 hour drive from that place. I think it's a place is Koromangalam or something like that. South Indian names are quite tricky to pronounce, right? So in that place, the masjid is quite extended now. But when I went there and I saw from outside, it was a big masjid. So I met the imam and I said, I didn't even completely enter the inside the real mosque which was built. And I asked the imam, he said, come on, this masjid is quite big. It doesn't seem that old. He said, you haven't seen the real treasure. He took me inside and I could see the mihrab, the mimbar, made of wood, painted with vegetable oils, of that time preserved. And when you enter the mosque, the originally built, of course there's extension to it. If you go to the original place, you immediately feel that this mosque is not the modern mosque. Because of course the architecture is old, and the feeling you get, you feel like you are entering a cave, I think. Yeah, it was very, big walls, quite thick walls there. And when you enter, subhanAllah, when I was praying, literally I was crying. And at that time, I messaged Adnan Rashid, mashallah, historian. I said, Sheikh, I got the chance to visit one of the oldest mosques in India. And not just Malik Dinar came there, built mosque, but rather he preached Islam. That's why if you go to state of Kerala, still you find at least 26% of the particular state is Muslim. And Muslims are well there, well off there, economically, religiously, from political, every perspective. Yeah. So Islam came very early, and there is surprising history. Another history of Gujarat. There's a place called Bhavnagar. Okay, Bhavnagar is in Gujarat.
Yeah.
And in that place, some people say that there was a masjid built whose qibla was shifted towards Kaaba. Some people claim that Islam came before it came to Kerala, and they shifted their qibla from Masjid al-Quds towards Kaaba. And some people say no, possibly they came. So there's a distortion on the history. There's no concrete evidence of that particular masjid. Even though we leave that the Qiblatain Masjid in India, at least if we take into consideration, which is recorded in history, well recorded in history, the Chairman Juma Masjid, which was finished in 629 CE. Imagine, subhanAllah, how early Islam came to India.
Amazing. And then, of course, we know the stories how it spread and things like that.
Yeah, in the northern part of India, it came. The first came Muhammad bin Qasim, then followed by other kings as well. So you have then the establishment of Delhi Sultanate, then Mughal Sultanate, and we all know the popular history. Even though Muhammad bin Qasim and things like that, lots of people, that's an interesting point. Now we'll talk about that inshallah later when we come to Aurangzeb rahimahullah, because there are lot of things to mention about him, because he is one of the particular king who is actually misunderstood by most of the people. And he along with other parts
about him. Tell us a little bit about Aurangzeb. Why, for the sake of the viewers, why was he so misunderstood, and what was his reality? Tell us a little bit about that.
The reality is, the problem is when we actually try to understand a particular period of time, a particular history by modern context.
Yes.
For example, you have certain context in place in India at the moment, but there was some other context in place at that time. So there's a fallacy, it's a kind of fallacy where when you judge a past based on your present. So in that time, of course, he is well known. Actually, most of the time he's.
Oh, looks like we've lost him, Joni.
Yeah, I think he's gonna get back again. So
Inshallah. I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, history intrigue.
Amazing.
But the point I was making was, Joni, look at the history of India, the amount of history, the rich Islamic history, that is there. You know, we talk about Al-Andalus, we talk about Ottoman history, but Indian history is so rich.
Not only that, bro.
Islam.
If you find any Sahih Hadith, bro, with the narration and everything, yeah. I mean, look at the scholar that India produced, bro. Subhanallah, all that, bro. It's amazing. Like one of the favorite, like everybody knows, Sheikh Oliullah Shah.
Dahlawi, yes.
Subhanallah, like not only there's so many scholars from there.
There are so many scholars. I think
we often forget.
I think we got Ayaz back now. Sorry, Ayaz, we lost you there for a moment. So, yeah, you were mentioning about Aurangzeb. Tell us a little bit about Aurangzeb.
Aurangzeb, rahimahullah, one of the, like, he's, told, and if you go to India, when we speak to people, when we talk about Mughal history, one of the particular guy will be brought up is Aurangzeb, rahimahullah. He was told, like, people would say, no, he destroyed temples. Yeah, he destroyed temples. By the way, temple destruction, you have to, that's why you're putting modern context to understand the history. No, you have to understand the context. He was a king after all. And the kings has to have some political agenda at place. They have to increase, they are bound to, safeguard their political, territory. They are bound to expand their territory. So in that time, temple desecration is the particular word, which was popular at that time. So, for example, there's a place A, and you are trying to invade place A and capture the place A. Now, place A has a certain temple. Now, what you do is, if you want to capture, first thing you do is you just go and destroy the temple. So, what happens when you destroy the temple? The people would understand that how you would translate. You won't just translate as that they destroyed our temple. No, God is not with us, because different they used to worship different deities. So for them, when temple is destroyed, okay, God is not with us. God doesn't want us to do certain things and things like that. So they lose faith in the particular kingdom. So temple has more to do with politics, right? Not just temple. If you look back at the history, Aurangzeb, rahimahullah, he actually destroyed one of the particular mosque as well. When he heard that particular mosque had some wealth, or a guy who who put some wealth beneath the masjid, so he actually ordered to destroy the masjid and rebuild somewhere else. There's a history, right? Not just temple. And one of the famous temple in Banaras, it's quite a popular city in India. Banaras, also known as the modern name of that particular city, is Varanasi. There's a particular mosque. So there's a Hindu tradition, when you go back, is when they have to shift a particular temple, firstly they would shift the idol of that particular temple, then they would destroy or deconstruct the particular structure. So when he heard about a particular, he was complained. I think it was the particular temple was in Banaras. He received complaint from the people. There's some mischief happening in that particular mosque, particular temple. So what he did was, he took out he was on his way to Bengal actually. He was there, he received the complaint, he acted as a responsible king. So when you're a responsible king, you firstly tend to help people, right? You try to safeguard people. You want to secure people. If some people feel a threat, and I think some priest or someone from the committee of the particular temple, they did some crazier stuff, right? I don't want to mention that particular word, but they did. Now, what he did, followed the tradition. He shifted the idol first, then ordered to demolish the particular temple. Now, from this particular incident, can we say that he was a destroyer of a temple, despite put the political context in place? Set that aside. Can you imagine? He is ordering. If he was a temple destroyer, this one example is more than enough to claim that he was not a temple destroyer. If he was, why in the first place did he order to replace or shift the idol first?
Remove the idol.
He was well aware. Yeah, so he was well aware of the tradition.
Attacking the religious aspect, it was dealing with the political aspect rather than the religious aspect. I get that. I understand.
And also, there's one simple point I want to make. If he was a temple destroyer or any of the Mughal king, Of course, we had kings who were not all perfect. They were Muslim king, but Aurangzeb, rahimahullah, he was the guy who was one of the most religious person in the entire lineage. Of course, they have people like Akbar, who invented his own religion, because he had a particular context in place. Deen Ilahi, right? He had one follower, that is Birbal, his advisor. We know the famous story. So, if I use an argument, usually when I engage with people who come up with the idea of the Aurangzeb, rahimahullah, he was a temple destroyer and things like that. I said, hang on a second. If he was a temple destroyer, if he could have forced the entire nation to accept Islam, still you say Muslim is in minority. He could have
destroyed every single temple in the country, and
even after not just destroyed, he could have forced people to embrace Islam. Right? Because he was, by the way, Aurangzeb, rahimahullah, was one of the strongest king ever in India. And not only that, India, 25% of world GDP was in India at that time.
Right.
At the reign of Aurangzeb, rahimahullah.
It increased to about 30%, but depending on which understanding you look at
it. At least 20% we can agree on, right?
Yeah, 25% easily, yes. Absolutely. But that's interesting. It's interesting that you say that. And it's but the question I have is, with the rich history of Islam in India, which we know about, people need to study their history. That's first of all. But how did we get to where we are now, where you had rich Islamic history from the time of the Prophet ﷺ through to the growth of Islam in India, through to the years of tolerance as well? Of course, there was times of conflict, but there's times of tolerance as well. And peace and security, and like you mentioned, the economic buildup of the country under the Muslims. How did we get to where we are now, where Muslims are generally quite weak? They're weak politically, but also weak religiously, where they follow their culture. They're naming their children George, for God's sake. Yeah, how do we get to where we are now, like this, in this situation? We got George and Johnny, right? You know what I'm saying? How do we get in this situation where, with our rich history, that the Muslims are in this particular situation now? What is going on? What is happening?
I would say there are lots of aspects. I would say there was a disconnect between the ulama and the awam, the scholars and the public, and also the British Empire really had an impact, I would say. Lots of people do not talk about from this perspective. We always say the slavery, the economic distortion and things like that. From an Islamic perspective, from a Dawah perspective, we have to look into that particular thing. What happened was, when these English emperors, people from England, when they came, of course they came originally as businessmen, right, as a trader. When they thought we could rule this place, they started ruling. So what happens was, they started to divide people. So division, which you see now, was started from then. And there was a famous policy they had. There's a policy whenever whoever studies history in India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, they will be aware of this particular line: divide and rule.
Yeah, divide and conquer.
Yeah, divide and rule was the right term, by the way, bro.
Yeah.
Mami is in Bangladesh conquer.
That's why I use the word.
Just joking, bro. Don't take it seriously. Yeah.
No, it's no good.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, so there's influence from there as well on how it's kind of dividing people religiously, but also from other ways as well, not just the religions, I'm assuming.
So division was not just division; it was hatred as well. Hatred was peddled against each other. So what happens is this. Let's go back to the history of Chairman Perumal. What happened? At that time, there was a caste system. So they believe Brahmins are the upper caste. They are, they had authority on everything. So now it goes back to the tradition of Hindus, yeah? One of the famous scholars, one of the famous writers, yeah, Al-Biruni, yeah, you know, right? He actually visited India in the 10th century. And he said, he learned Vedas and Upanishads, and he said about and recorded regarding the faith of Indians, I quote, he said, according to people in India, living in India, Hindus, God is unique, is eternal, had no beginning and end. He is working on his own. is great, is benevolent, is living, is life-giving, is controller of the universe, has no equals, no resemblance. If anybody and nobody resembles him, this was the concept of God the Hindus believed in that time.
In Hinduism. So within the
Yeah.
scripture.
No, there's a problem. Hang on. Is the interpretation of Hinduism was different, but the people, when you speak generally, they believe in one God. The monotheism was there.
Right, got it.
And what happens is this: when Islam came, there was a famous caste system, we know, right? So there were some lower caste people, they were not allowed to use public transport or public properties or particular roads. Even they could not sit with the upper class people, they couldn't eat with them. So what happened is, when Islam came, in Islam everyone was equal. So the lower caste people, they started embracing Islam. And they, even though those who did not embrace Islam at that time, they used to help Muslim emperors, because in Hindu culture, you had Kshatriya, one of the particular castes, who are allowed to fight. And there's an incident in the South India when there was a conflict between Muslim and Hindu king. Some Hindu lower caste Hindu people, they were there standing out in front of a masjid, saving masjid. Now, after that, this was the particular context. But when these people, these English people who came, they started dividing and rule. So when they divided, what happens is this: when you create a political chaos in a particular region, the focus of the common people would be, if you are downtrodden economically, what would you do? You would look for opportunities to feed yourself. You will not see anything. When you are hungry, your children are hungry, your family is hungry, your relatives are hungry. At that time, you would go and hunt for food. You look for food opportunities, right? So in this particular, if this becomes the condition of entire community, so that community bound to basically become a kind of irreligious or religious. It could go to two extremes. Either they become too religious people, right? Thank Allah, sabr, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ajab al-mu'min." Strange is the situation of a believer. When something good happens to him, he thanks Allah and he goes closer to Allah. When something bad happens to him, he does sabr in that case as well. He goes closer to Allah. It's a win-win situation for Muslim. But what happens is this: generally, if you talk about in reality, in practical sense, either people who have strong faith will go closer to Allah, have patience, sabr, but other extreme could be they would go away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which I strongly believe, because of the economic situation after the Mughals, Muslims, started losing the hold on economy. So that really resulted in people leaving, or not leaving, but rather that stopped the emergence, the propagation of Islam. Economy, because of the condition, and people at that time, they had a common enemy to defeat. That was English, the English people, right? The British. They had to defeat Britishers. So that they go engaged. Apart from Dawah was not the active. Every Muslim scholar, so you have Allama Iqbal, or Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan, and big scholars, Maulana Muhammad Ali Johar, and you have Maulana Dr. What is his name? Dr. Zakir Hussain, and all those big scholars. They focused on to defeat Britishers. So there was not that much dawah happening, and that really continued. The downfall of dawah started from that time. Dawah didn't rise up as it should be
because of the geopolitical situation. That was
geopolitical reasons. Yeah.
Now, the interesting, there's a couple of things I want to pick up on, just to rewind a little bit, because you mentioned a whole number of things that I want to talk about here. You mentioned about the caste system, right?
Yeah.
The Brahmins, the Dalits, and all in between that. Now, the oppression of the caste system, I guess, and even the racism within the caste system, based upon skin color also, and colorism, that led to, I think you mentioned earlier on, that led to creating fertile ground for Islam to be accepted by people from those who were the oppressed. And you find this throughout Islamic history anyway. Those who are the most oppressed, no matter which part of the world they're at, usually come to Islam because Islam brings that justice. Islam brings that level of equality, in quotation marks I'm going to put, or that Islam brings the rights to people for those who've had their rights taken away from them, right?
Yep.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that the issue of caste, racism, oppression, and then the dawah to Islam as well. But then you talked about something around that Hindus believe in, well, what we know is Hindus believe in multiple gods, in idols, idol worship. But then you quoted something that many Hindus believe in monotheism. So when you give dawah to Hindus, what is your approach and methodology of giving dawah to Hindus? What do you find is the best way to call Hindus to Islam?
Yeah, you know, I quoted Al-Biruni from Tarikh al-Hind. He has a book called Tarikh al-Hind. When he traveled to India in 10th century and he studied the Upanishads and Vedas. So what happens is this. Of course, they believe in multiple gods, but they believe in monotheism as well at the same time. It's quite confusing, like Christians. Now, let me give you an idea. So they believe that God sent avatar. Avatar, they say God incarnation. So they send avatars to the world to solve our issues. For example, Ram, you have Krishna, you have lots of deities they worship. But when you ask them, do you believe in a God? You say, yeah, God is one. He says Brahma or something. He would give you a name. So he is the main God. All these gods, they are kind of supplementary gods. They help the main God. But when you dig down, you talk about them. And by the way, there's an approach that you quote Hindu scriptures. And by the way, more than 90% of the people, they never heard of their scriptures except the popular called Gita or Vedas. They have heard of it. They never get to study them. They were just taught. They just heard in sermons, like in Muslim in subcontinent. They go to Jama. They just hear khutbah at the time, and most of the people, they don't even understand the khutbah, right?
Yeah.
Right. Similar was situation with me and Joni, that we never studied Quran. We never studied what Islam is. We never know what Islam is in a true sense. Similar goes with them. They do not study the scriptures. Most of the people. So now, Fitra approach is the best approach, I would say, with Hindus. So we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in a natural state. Right? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that every child is born upon a natural state, upon Fitra. Is their parents or their culture or possibly their society which makes them Jew, Christian, or Magian. Similar goes with these people. When you talk to them, they will say, yes, we believe in one God. Any Hindus you pick, if you talk about them, you dig down deeper into their belief, they'll say, yes, we believe in God, one God. There should be. And ask them some questions, yeah? You have to question their belief. So, and by the way, every Hindu you'd find has a different belief. So they have myriad of beliefs. They don't have one particular belief system. So you have, even though in Hinduism there's a particular sect called Arya Samaj, they don't believe in idol worship. They don't. It is quite popular, one of the popular, and they are one of the groups who talks venom about Islam, who splits poison about Islam. They would bring the issue of Aisha radiallahu anh and the history of Mughal as well. They bring out. They are very scholarly and they're academic people. They are very academic people nowadays. So academically speaking, they are quite. This particular group is quite active. So. But a simple way, just to summarize, if you want to give dawah to them, just firstly get to understand what that particular person believes.
Yes.
Firstly, you have to understand. This applies to any person, but particularly if you're talking to Hindu, because you can't just have a blanket idea of Hindu believes in this and this. This is no. Come on, everyone has this personal belief. They even have personal deities. So there is a scholar who was mentioning that Hindus worship 330 million gods.
330 million.
33 crores, they say.
Popular,
Wow. Okay.
33 million or 3300 million, whatever the case.
330
sun is God, moon is God. Even you yourself is God. I'll come to that later. So that's an interesting point I'll mention, inshallah. So firstly, you have to get to the person, which deity he worships. When you say one God, they will say one God. But which one God? Some would say Ram is one for me, or someone would say Shiva is one for me, someone would say Ganesha is one for me, someone would say Parvati is one for me, right? You could go on and on. Someone was a Lakshman for me, Ram's brother, right?
Yes.
But now they have personal deities, so they could say, now you have to question them. Hang on a second, do you really think he was God? Or, as we say, was Jesus God or someone sent by God?
Yeah.
I said, no, possibly sent by God. They would agree with this.
But there's
Right?
a nuance there. There's a couple of comments I just want to quickly read by Muslim BB. He just asked the same question that I've asked you. I remember once giving dawah to a Hindu, and he said he believed in one God. I was confused. How do you approach dawah to Hindu? So, as you mentioned, the fitra approach, appealing to the fitra of that individual, which is in line with Islam. Yeah. So that's one approach. Is there any other approaches apart from
Bro,
that?
before you go to the question, I'm gonna ask Ayaz something like, me and Ayaz, we have the experience to live with the Hindus because I grew up in Bangladesh. Most of my friends, my best friend actually, they are Hindus because we went to school together, we grew up together, we watch movie together. That's what we do.
Bollywood movies together.
Bollywood movies, bro.
yeah.
That's why I can speak.
Hold on, only 1 second. Yeah, let me just get the comments out the way. Then I'm going to come to Ayaz the new. Okay, because that's an interesting point about having friends who are Hindus and how you approach that when you do it when you're so close together. That's a modern day thing. We're going to come to that in a moment. So hold that thought, Johnny, please, bro. Yeah. So let me just get these comments out the way. So Muslim BB asks that apart from the fitra approach, is there anything else that you would advise when talking to Hindus when giving them dawah? Just very quickly.
Gorab approach, if people are aware of in Ira we have Gorab approach. That's very profound, I would say. Very profound approach for Hindus. And I've been using this over half decade, over 6 years now. And that really works a lot.
It's very successful, yeah? It has impact.
Very successful. Very successful. Because it gives you the foundation. You talk about basic things. You just don't talk about lots of things. What happens is, and by the way, Ayatul Kursi is one of the ayah which is very profound when you introduce the concept of Allah we believe into Hindus. Surah Al-Ikhlas, of course, is there, but it's short. But Ayatul Kursi goes deeper into that.
Yeah, that's deep. So you've got the fitra approach, the Gorab approach. For those who don't know what the Gorab approach is, it's calling to God's existence, God's oneness. So talking about Tawheed in particular, explaining who Allah is, God's revelation. So that is the Quran, of course, and explaining the miracle of the Quran, and prophethood. So showing that if you believe in the message, you have to accept the messenger, right? So who brought that message, and explaining who Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So essentially, it's establishing the hujjah, right? It's going through systematically, going through a structured approach on explaining, taking that person on a journey to explain Tawheed of Allah, His revelation, His message, and prophethood. Okay, so and then the third one you mentioned, Ayatul Kursi. I think that's powerful.
Fourth one, I would say, for very, very, very rare people. They are very rare. When you go deep into their scripture and talk about monotheism, right? So what happens is this: they have pantheism. The interpretation is pantheism, but originally scriptures, a lot of verses. Because there's a confusion. You have to be very smart and you have to be very well read. You can just go and read a book, particular 200, 300 pages book, and they say, now I know the scripture. No, bro, you have to spend years on it because they have
studying it. That makes
plenty
sense.
of books, right?
Yes.
Plenty of books. You could have a library, one small particular library in your home just about their scriptures. So it's not that easy.
I mean, personally, I'm not really a fan of that approach. I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of, reading, using the Bible, quoting the Bible against Christians, or quoting the Hindu scriptures, because essentially we're not scholars in those scriptures. We don't like it when other people do it to our Quran and take it out of context and not understand. And likewise, I'm not really a fan of doing that to other people's scriptures either. We have a very clear, simple message. And I believe
what if a Christian comes to us and says, I have a tafsir of Quran for you? How would you feel? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Say, hang on a second, how can you? We won't even rely on that tafsir.
Of course, you wouldn't accept it. Most people wouldn't accept it. That's the point. So I don't expect others to do the same when we do scripture.
I'm saying
here, Ayaz, what's the name of the anti-idol Hindu? What's the name of the anti-idol Hindu? What's his name that you mentioned?
Okay, that's a particular group called Arya Samaj.
What is it?
Arya, Arya, Arya Samaj. Samaj means society.
Okay, Arya Samaj. Okay, that's fine. So that answers that question. So my next question is going to be this. In fact, Ahmed Abdullah asked a question which I've just talked about earlier. Is there any possibility that we can give dawah to Hindu with their own scriptures as we use Christian scriptures? I told you my viewpoint. I don't think we should use it for Christian scriptures as well as Hindu scriptures, because most people probably wouldn't accept it if we did that. I really genuinely believe that the Gorap approach you talked about earlier, the Fitra approach, the given that clear
Quranic approach.
of Tawheed, right, is enough. That's my view. You know, you don't even have to delve into those scriptures.
The problem is what happens when we start giving dawah. We want to show them how academic we are, right? So how we are very academic, well read. You know, you name the book, I've read it. I'll tell you, a friend of mine was quite popular, very active dai. Still, mashallah, he does dawah, and may Allah bless him. So once we were talking about that, we were conversation, and he stuck quoting, I think, Vedas or something like that. I said, hang on a second, have you read the entire scripture you're quoting?
Yes.
Have you read it? So no.
Exactly.
You read one particular verse, you don't know the context, and you are interpreting. Yes,
exactly.
We believe there are verses of Tawheed found lots of scripture talk about Tawheed. Lots of scripture. You go to Sufism, by the way, they talk about one God. Hang on a second. Can you quote the scripture? No.
This is an interesting point, because this is my next question for you. Have you got experience talking to Sikhs about Islam, given dawah? Because the Sikhs that I've spoken to, they will say, yeah, we believe in one God. We have a very strong belief in monotheism. So then what would your approach be to that for somebody who says that? How would you deal with that?
Yeah, the problem is they are quite, when we talk about Gorab, right? You mentioned that, I mentioned as well, the God and oneness of God. They are quite familiar. So we just have to give them the real understanding of who Allah is.
Yes,
right? We have to give the real concept that we believe, and that's true, and who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, right? And they have some divinity connected to them, gurus as well.
That's
so they
right.
say what we will in God, but they attribute some godly characters to those gurus.
Exactly.
So firstly, you have to give them the real understanding who Allah is, right? When you don't give them name Allah. Just give them, if there is a God, He must have certain characteristics. For example, all-powerful, all-knowing, unlike human beings, who doesn't share His divinity, right? Who never came to this earth, no one has seen Him, right? If you give this basic understanding or basic characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now ask them the question, do you think any of the deity you worship fulfills or has these certain qualities? And now, from this perspective,
it comes to the point that they understand rububiyyah, they understand Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, but it's the place where they fail on is Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, right?
Yeah.
Because they give some of the names and attributes of Allah to human beings, the gurus, right? And even in some cases Tawheed al-Uluwiyyah as well, because in many cases they worship the gurus as well, which is where the Tawheed is not fully fulfilled, if that makes sense. In the true belief of monotheism, it falls down a little bit when it comes to the Tawheed of worship and the Tawheed of the names and attributes of Allah, because they assign it to other than Allah, and that's where I guess it fails.
Definitely, you're right. What happens is this. That's why I said, you mentioned Tawheed, mashallah, that's great. So they even tend to have misunderstanding or I would say clouded understanding of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. They have to clarify. Well, firstly, whatever the approach you take, firstly, once you establish the facts who God is, once they establish the Asma wa Sifat, then you say, do you think anyone other than Him deserves worship? No. So, and after that, now, whatever we believe must be in line with what He wants us to believe, right?
Yes.
From there, we have to introduce the concept of revelation and concept of prophethood. Now, there's a problem with the Sikhs or any there are lots of other religions as well. So they fail to understand the concept of prophethood, concept of risala, and the concept of revelation. So we have to get them to understand the prophethoods per se, right? And when it comes to revelation, they believe, okay, whatever Guru said is a revelation. No, only Allah is in the authority of sending revelations. By the way, so they don't have the proper understanding of revelation and prophethood. So we have to give them the understanding. Once we establish that God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the God, He deserves our worship. We should worship Him alone, and we should not worship anyone beside Him. Then, now, if He is God, introduce them the revelation and prophethood. This way you could approach them, inshallah.
And you can approach them in that way. So let's fast forward now to what Joni was saying just before, in the modern context. So we know about You've given some examples of giving dawah to Hindus, to Sikhs, etc. And I think, to be honest with you, the Go-Rap approach can be used pretty much across the board for any person, background, ethnicity, etc. I think it is a very comprehensive system, right? But Johnny was mentioning earlier on, I think it's a very profound point. Okay, we've got all these things. We've got Muslims who are been brought up with Hindus and other religions, best friends with them. Johnny watches Bollywood movies with them, right? You may have gone to, hang out in the marketplace. You do everything together. So, Johnny, tell us a little bit about that. You've got these best friends who are from other religions, but what's the situation with the current? Basically, let's fast forward to now. How do we give dawah to these type of people?
Yeah, bro, this is an interesting question, bro. That's why when I saw Ayaz, I think he knows, because you guys didn't live with the Hindus. So me and Ayaz, we grown up with them, so we had a different concept about them. But before I continue there, bro, like I was saying, like when as a da'i, when we give dawah to any other people, any other background, bro, is bear in mind, like keep it simple. Tawheed is the most powerful thing. So when you explain the Tawheed to them, bro, and it doesn't need any other explanation, because sometimes as a da'i, I heard some brothers say, brother, I get anxiety of the rejection. I don't understand, brother, why you got anxious? Why is the anxiety comes from? You going for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, explain to them Tawheed. If they don't understand, Hidayah is not in your hands. All you can do, you can convey the message.
Beautiful.
As simple as it is, khalas. And people like the Hindu, bro, when I was growing up, obviously I had no concept of Islam, so I didn't care who is a Hindu, Sikh, or Muslims. He's just my best friend. We watch movie together. That's all mean to me. That was all for me. I used to stay in their house, eating with them. Even the puja, when they did the puja, bro, I would go to my Hindu friend's house, astaghfirullah, and help them to build the stage for the puja.
Subhanallah.
Do you understand? This is it, because he's my best friend. I have to go and help them, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I would go and help them. So now because when I started practicing about Islam, I was not in Bangladesh anymore. So I came here. So I didn't actually get that part of my life where I could convey the message of Islam to them. But I think in that case, Ayaz can tell how to approach them, and because he lives in India and he's practicing in India. So for me, I didn't have that experience. But all I can say, the media, what it makes like a Hindu, Muslim, actually the normal people, they don't have that kind of concept like because of he is Hindu or because I'm Muslim, we have a different kind of attitude to each other. It's not like that actually. We like simple brothers and sisters like that. We have no problem. But I also can explain how he approached the Hindus while he's living in India.
Yeah, it's interesting because you've got a very weird dynamic. And you know what? This is not unique, again, to India either. If you look at other parts of the world, like I was in the Balkans, for example, you have some people who, obviously after the war in Serbia in particular, there is still a lot of resentment towards Muslims there. There's still a lot from the non-Muslims that are there. But even still, there are people who accept Islam from that region. Many of them have to leave the region to be able to practice their Islam. They can't show it openly. And I'm assuming it's a similar situation in India. When Hindus accept Islam or Sikhs accept Islam, it can be a very difficult situation, I'm assuming. Is that true, Ayaz?
Could you repeat? I was unable to hear you properly.
In India, when Hindus or Sikhs accept Islam, take their Shahada, it must be a difficult situation for them to be able to practice their religion openly when they convert.
It depends, It depends on the families, You have liberal families or open-minded families everywhere, right? But you have conservative families. It depends on the family, number one. Number two, of course, they face backlash from the community. I'll share just a recent example. I was approached by someone. He said, I want to embrace Islam, or what about my family? They will kick me out of my house. And they could do as I could face some physical threats as well. So of course it's difficult for some people, but metropolitan cities like New Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, in cities like these places, you don't find it much difficult to embrace Islam. But when you go back to the rural places, rural areas, it's quite difficult. And at the same time, the people in the rural areas, you find it quite difficult as well to convey the message of Islam to them as well. So cities, no problem, but issues are there in the rural areas. So yeah, of course, it's difficult for some people. For some people, it's easy. But most of the people I have met, they've been through some trouble or tribulations and tests. Of course, as a Muslim, we've been through the tests.
Yes.
So yeah, we can't just say, of course, when you accept Islam, all problems are gone. No, come on, we'll be tested.
Of course not.
You know, the India and Bangladesh, Pakistan, the youth, they grew up as a not normal human being because they grew up with the mindset of the Bollywood. Whatever they see in the Bollywood, bro, they wake up in the morning by thinking that he is that guy. Literally, bro, we have that big problem in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, bro, with this Bollywood, bro. I think Bollywood is one of the
Joni
reasons.
seems very obsessed with Bollywood.
No, I'm saying because I was a victim of the Bollywood, bro. Because it took 20 years of my life, not let me live as a real human being, not knowing who am I. Actually, I'm imitating the people who have no relationship with me, and think, you know what I mean? It's like literally, it's a abuse, man, like a psychological abuse.
It's very telling because right at the beginning, Johnny, what you mentioned something really telling at the beginning, right? You said that because Shah Rukh Khan wore a cross in one of his movies, look at the impact that it had on you as an individual. You went and got one as well, just to be like him, right? So it tells you the power of Bollywood, actually, the influence it has on people, and if they want to push some propaganda out, people will start buying that. They will start accepting that. So it's very, very interesting that you mentioned that. You know, it's another thing. Actually, we're not going to talk about current politics, but Bollywood. You got many Muslim Bollywood actors, and it's interesting. They're getting a lot of criticism at the moment because they're not speaking out about some of the things that are going on and the current situation and stuff. It's just intriguing and to understand why. I'm assuming it's for their own safety and security. That's why it's not safe for them to do. That's what I assume. I don't think it's because they'll lose fame or anything like that. I'm assuming it's more to do with their safety and security. That's why they haven't come out with that. I'm not sure if you're able to.
Sadly, you have to understand their entire business depends on non-Muslims, bro. The entire audience,
really?
Majority of them are non-Muslims. Come on.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm more than serious, bro.
Yeah, of course, bro. They can't open their
For
mouth.
example, I'll hear it to you. There's a quite popular place in central Delhi. So you'd find the most so-called modern people hanging around in that area, right? So every city has a modern place, yeah? For that central Delhi, part of central Delhi is quite modern, yeah? You will find people in Western dresses, yeah? As if you will feel the Indian Europe. You are there in Indian Europe. So when you talk about Muslims in Islam, okay, Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, these are people they would name.
Right, got it. Okay. And they're not the best of role models in many cases as well. But alhamdulillah, look.
But anyway, but that also, I take those Bollywood as a icebreaker for them to introduce Islam, because you have to hop on the opportunity you have, right?
You have to speak the people's language.
I do.
No.
I do.
Tony, what about you? Would you use Bollywood in your da'wah?
Bro, it depends, like he said, because if the guy knows Islam only through Shah Rukh Khan, then I have to use Shah Rukh Khan. But like you said, you need to speak to the people the language they understand.
Yes.
If he only knows Salman Khan, I need to talk about Salman Khan, and then you tell him actually you know what Islam is all about.
But you have to transition through. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I just want to talk about a little bit of dawah. You know, as a da'i, Ayaz, you are in the field, I am in the field, alhamdulillah. Abu Tayeb, obviously, God knows how many years. So the thing is, in the Quran, in the Surah, chapter 18, verse number 28, Allah made it very clear. It's for the people who feel anxiety when give dawah. Allah says, "Oh Prophet, tell them, if someone wants to believe, let them believe.
Yes.
If someone don't want to believe, let them disbelieve." Khalas, I mean, you don't have to really have Allah says, "I send this Quran to make your life easy, not for you to get depressed." So this Quran is a rahmah, is a mercy for everyone. And also, bro, you know, as you like to say, fitra, we all have a fitra as a human being. I want to make this really clear, because you can only live so long away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fighting against your own soul. You know why? In the Quran, I write it down here. You know, Surah Taha, verse number 124, bro. Allah says, like, whoever live away, don't live the life of that Allah and His Messenger wants, he will live a life of depression. He will have like ma'aishatun danka. Like you can never have feel happiness in your heart while you're not following Allah and His Messenger. And then look what comes. Allah, and then when they die, whether they like it or not, you're gonna die. That's the reality. We're gonna be under the 6 feet more than we've been alive. There is a saying in English, ignoring the reality doesn't make it any less real. So
Yeah.
when they die, then they will say, God, why did you raise me up blind while I used to be able to see in the dunya? Then God will say, look, it's scary. My ayat, my signs came to you, people spoke to you, and you neglect them, ignore them. So today you will be forgotten. And if the Rabbul Ashal Alim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you on the day of judgment, I don't care about you today, then there is no moving forward from there. That's a scary thing. This life is a one-way highway, the one-way road. They don't come back. So
Okay,
that's why
we've
it's
got
very
some
important.
more comments before we wrap up the show. Jazakallah khair for that, Johnny.
Yeah.
Really deep that was actually. It's really powerful. And I think that's one of the things that I would also argue is we should use a lot more Quran in our dawah as well. I think that's something I highly recommend anyone who's involved in dawah use the Quran more. But here's some comments. We've got Sister Salwa who gives salams to everyone. Wa alaikum assalam. And also Brother Zoaib, who was up before
Zoaib
that.
is our outreach specialist in Fiji, mashallah.
MashaAllah. Zain
MashaAllah.
gives salams as well.
Salam, bro.
Brother Ahmed's asking a question. If any Hindu accepted Islam, is it compulsory for him to change his name?
That's subhanAllah. It's a very popular question. Yeah, usually there's a misunderstanding we have, you know. Basically, in West, quite popular in the Asian community. Even go back to Malaysia. In
Yes.
Malaysia, I think Fadli might have talked about. I don't know. In there, you have Chinese, right? Chinese, they would say, the Malaysian people say, no, change your name first. You have to become a Muslim. Similar goes with India. So you have Hindi or Sanskrit name, you have to change it. Unless it doesn't contain any shirk or the elements of shirk, why on earth they need to change their name?
Yeah, exactly. That's a general principle that the scholars
Yeah.
explain. So as long as the name is a good name or doesn't have any shirk or contradict the teachings of Islam, then there's no compulsion for them to change their name.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it has a bad meaning or if it has something which is relating to shirk, then
Yeah,
they have to
then
change that. But
one of the question here, Brother Abu Tayyib, was asked, how do you give dawah to Hindu friends? I think Joni didn't explain much because he didn't encounter that.
No,
So I'll
that's why I
share
said
some.
Yeah.
I didn't have experience because
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't
why. That's why.
that
Yeah.
time.
I want to just take on
Yeah.
that. Just give some my thoughts on that. So what happens is this: generally, the
Yes.
people from the subcontinent has a feeling or there's a mentality. They are very afraid to share anything which is contradictory to the belief of the person we are talking to. We are afraid, man, bura man jayega. That's this popular, sentence in Urdu. What will think of me, right? So what is this kind of inferiority complex we live in? So we don't share the mercy, the religion of mercy, the message of mercy to them. We don't know. We are making one of the greatest mistakes in our life by not sharing Islam to them. So it doesn't matter what you know. If you do not know, take them somewhere if they're interested. Take them somewhere. I'll narrate to you. I was in Jamia Millia Islamia in a boarding hostel, and in that boarding hostel, we had a big hall, right? No room. 10 people living in a hall, but still, of course, they have separate beds. But in that, one of the brother was a Brahmin Hindu, right? And I just had a good connection with him. Akhlaq, right? If I get something, I'll offer him, bro, come join me, eat something together. Build that connection first, right?
Yeah.
And then slowly I pushed on some materials to them because I saw he was not interested much on discussion. And he said, yeah, I understand your point, but I don't agree. I cannot agree. But I said, no problem. At least take these books. I enjoy. Give me the books. And so there came a time that he started asking me the book. Bro, you haven't given me any book this month. Come on, give me some book. So this is how you have to engage with them. You have to understand them. If they are not interested in reading, talking, it depends. If you're talking, talk to them, speak to them. Your job, by the way, is not to convince someone. Your just job is to convey, as Prophet Muhammad said, "Balighu anni walau ayah." Convey from me, even if it is one verse. Guidance comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are not here to guide, no matter who we are, right? No matter what sort of argument we present. Our arguments are just means, not the end for their guidance. right? You could try your best, engage with them. If you could invite them to read Quran at least, it's very. So one of the easiest things that you could do is gift them a copy of Quran in the language they understand. So all different languages, yeah, in India, like Hindi, or you have Bangla, you have Telugu, Tamil, Punjabi, all different languages has Quran available. Even Dawah materials available in those languages.
Yeah, subhanallah.
Simple, yeah.
I think that I definitely agree with that. I think one of the best things, there are many approaches in which you can give dawah,
Yeah, of course.
especially to somebody who you're close to, or somebody that you know that you can have some influence over. And remember, the dawah is meant to be holistic. The dawah is meant to be something which is not the quick wins. We're not looking for quick wins.
Yeah.
We're looking at building relationships, because the ones where you build relationships, what I found is, has more of an impact on the dawah that you give them. So I think that's a good way to finish off the program. Jazakallah khair for your time, brother Ayaz. It's been very insightful. Been I think hopefully it'll be inspiring other people. I'm just going to give one quick shout out about the current campaign we're doing in the last 10 nights of Ramadan for our dawah center here in Newcastle, called Islamic Diversity Center. If you want to become a supporter of IDC, the Islamic Diversity Center, go to idcsupporter.com and set up a direct debit, a regular donation of only £10 a month. We're looking to continue the good dawah work that's been going on and established based upon the things that you've just heard tonight. You know, we've been around since 2002, giving dawah here in the northeast of England. So we are honestly looking for supporters so that we can continue this work. You can get the rewards in these blessed month of the last 10 nights of Ramadan, in this blessed month of Ramadan, and also throughout the year, so you can continue getting those rewards and support for supporting the dawah. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up. Jazakallah khair, brother Ayaz, for your time. We really, really appreciate it. Johnny, Jazakallah khair, and we'll be back tomorrow evening. Who do we have tomorrow evening? That's a good question. Who have we got coming on tomorrow? So we have brother Muawiyah Tucker, who's going to be talking about what's happening in the world and how riba is at its core, not COVID. So that's going to be an interesting topic. So make sure you tune in tomorrow midnight, and then we're going to continue our program until the end of Ramadan. Jazakumullah khair, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.